for actually rigging cloth on an armature for a rig with a character on it, you basically have to paint the parts that don't move the same way you would paint the arms or legs underneath it. So here I have the sleeves are separate meshes, and then the upper arms are painted the same way the upper arms are painted underneath. So the idea is that that'll move along with the arms the same way. And then the rest of it, which is from like her elbow down, is moving around as cloth. Yeah, so it didn't work perfectly, of course, because I have like some extrusions here or some intersections here around the shoulders. But I mean, I was new to this. I was trying it out, so it worked, turned out pretty well for the first time. And then her hair there. So what's interesting is actually that I wasn't completely satisfied with was this was actually during a time where cycles did not have volumetric rendering yet. What I did to get the fog or the atmospheric effect here was based on a tutorial I watched online, where I would actually combine the volumetric effect of Blender internal with the Blender Cycles engine, which is a similar thing that I did for the smoke, which you'll see in a second. But the idea was that the two images would just composite together and the atmosphere would be there, which worked out really well. I later learned that you could literally just render out some nice mist and then all that good stuff, which turned out pretty good in some later renders that I did for my demo reel. But for this particular project, I didn't do that when I was rendering it out. So what you'll naturally notice is along her hairline, there's some kind of a discrepancy there. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like the two images didn't perfectly match up, and so her hair, or it did perfectly match up, but her hair didn't respond to the fog the same way it looks in Cycles, if that makes sense. So it was kind of like a different size almost in the two different renders, which is really disappointing because when you look at it, you don't really get to fully appreciate the detail on her hair because the Blender internal fog composite gave it like a bigger outline. So you don't really like see the nuances of its movement, which is kind of sad, but moving on. Oh god, Yee's hair was fun to do, combing it back and stuff like that. It looks kind of cool actually, and it worked out pretty well. By the way, in case you guys don't know, Yee's concept art was based off of a fan skin idea by Nico Taku on DeviantArt, which I'll provide a link in the bottom. Yeah, I mean it was basically verbatim what he was doing with it with Yee, and it was kind of like a not samurai Yee, but like I forgot what he called it. Go check it out. But I would probably call it like Dojo Yee or Training Yee or something like that. So you see like a really relaxed wardrobe there. Fun fact on that particular scene, Yee's hair literally goes crazy for like 2 seconds. Just watch it over and over again, you'll see it. Also, the fact that the drummers are actually Noxian soldiers was interesting. People seem to notice every once in a while. The idea was that it was two things. First of all, I was a little bit too lazy to actually use a different model because I already made these guys and I wanted to use them. But second of all, I wanted it to make sense that they were there. So like, if they just came out of nowhere, it would have been like, okay, I guess that's random, you know? Like, but the idea was that they were kind of there, you know, not unknowingly, but they were there and then they betrayed them. So like, this is kind of goes along the lines of like the original, like because Noxus and Ionia obviously had a war before. This is technically set in the time period after that. So the war is over and Noxus and Ionia are at peace. That's important because that's one of the reasons why they're there. They're at peace. You know, there's no more war in the real world. So, or not in the real world, in the League of Legends universe, according to the lore. So the way I had it now was that Noxus and Ionia are getting along now, essentially, more or less. And so Noxus being at this Ionian event is not that uncommon or unusual. So that's fine. But the point was that these particular Noxians were like neo-Noxians. You know, they're these guys who still believe in the original, like, you know, Noxians are better than Ionians kind of thing, and wanted to rebel against this particular event, being that there were two main champions in the League of Legends there. And so they wanted to kill them or something to make a statement. And that's the idea. So if you guys didn't know, that's kind of like the story behind it. Let's press play. Oh yeah, let's pause right here just because I haven't talked about the background yet. The window there, couple things that I regret doing. Well, actually, not a couple things I regret doing, but one thing that I regret doing, and another thing I want to remark on. One thing I regret doing is making the entire island in the background an actual island. That's an actual island in the background. Like the entire mesh exists in the background. It's very far away and it's still very big. And so, quite frankly, it was very inefficient to render. All the trees are actually there. um, and stuff like that. Like, quite frankly, if it wasn't for that, I feel like my render times would have dropped drastically. However, it was already too late to change it when I was rendering it, and like all the perspective things that were important to the camera were. I just didn't want to. I was lazy. Okay, that's the truth. I was too lazy to change it. It was already there. I probably could have rendered out a plane of it or something and put it in the background, but I didn't. Um, so yeah, moving on. The shape of the window wooden things. I don't even know what they're called. But the window wooden things, the shape of that was, again, also inspired by the Ionian crest. So the Ionian crest almost plays with, like, the idea of yin and yang, right? So yin and yang, but with dragons and, like, silver dragons. And so I wanted to reminisce the idea of, like, these two dragons curling up, on each other, essentially. And so, yeah, that particular design was just kind of reminiscent of those two dragons curling. And you can kind of see it, the idea of it, where they're kind of curling around this particular focal point. But yeah, it's just the why I did that. This alpha strike was super fun to do. I basically just rendered it out like 2 or 3 times and then made it semi-transparent and like lagged the layers a little bit to get some like staggering animation and made it yellow. It was really fun to do. That was cool. And this whole choreography was fun to do. By the way, one other render error, maybe, I'm not gonna point out the errors because there's so many in this particular video. Like I'll just be honest. There's so many errors in this video. Like it's not even funny. Like, well, okay, it's hilarious, but I particularly don't want to point them out because it makes me cringe sometimes. But if you guys want to go through and look at all the errors, you can certainly list them in the comments below if you're up for the challenge. If you put, okay, let's play a game. You put the timestamp of every technical error, like a render error or something like that, or like a hair error, or the cloth errors are more or less there all the time. But if you put as many technical errors as you can spot on in a comment down below, the person who gets the most right, or the person who gets all of them right, will receive a oh gosh, a personal, you will have a personal video request fulfilled by me. How's that? So if you find all the errors, you can say, okay, now Dylan, make this, and I will make it within reason, of course. So do that, and I can't believe I'm doing this. No, I'll do it. Like, why the hell not? Within reason, just ask me to do something, or if you have like a short video idea, not a long one. I'm not, guys. I can barely. Like, this took me like 5 months to do. Like, come on, I can barely make big videos. Be reasonable with your requests. But if you do find them all, and I trust that you will, just put them in the comments below, and or message me, actually, whichever one you feel is easiest to reach me by. But yeah, put them in the comments below is fine, and then I'll look through them and see who got the most correct. And every time you get a wrong one, I'll say this just to make it fun. Every time you get a written error that's not an error technically, I deduct a point. So whoever gets the most points. All right, okay, let's move on. Oh, that's my favorite. Literally my favorite shot. Not this one. Literally my favorite shot in the shot is literally my favorite shot in the video is when she hits the pillar and the smoke flies out. The smoke was so fun to do. You can look at my BTS blog for more details, but basically it was, I took the pillar and I chopped it up into 3 pieces, the middle one being the only one that's really moving, and then had it fall back at the right time, and then of course the banner was a cloth simulation. A collie was like in order to hide the really cheap, like, it was literally like a straight cut for the poles. Like, if you ever played Pokemon Stadium, like, when like Scyther and Pinsir like had to cut the logs in half, yeah, like when I was like, that's basically how, like, that they probably cut that column in half because it was just so straight. So like it wasn't like a realistic fracturing of wood, right? So I wanted to cover that up. I didn't want people to see that I did that so cheaply because it was just, you know, easy to do. And it happens a lot. People do that all the time when they do fractures in 3D stuff, in my defense. So I did that, and then I covered it up with smoke, which was a very common thing to do. So again, I mentioned this before, but I did the smoke in Blender Internal Engine because at the time they didn't have volumetric rendering in Cycles, um, which they do now. But yeah, so I actually composited again the Blender Internal with the Blender Cycles render to get that smoke effect, and it actually turned out really nice. I liked it a lot. So yeah, let's continue. Oh, that's another one of my favorite shots. When she just gets hit against the pillar.